So credit is the act of purchasing something that you're not paying for immediately. Um, and it comes in different forms, not just credit cards. So we're going to talk about all the different forms of credit in this chapter. Okay, so debtors are anybody that uses credit. It has a negative connotation sometimes to it, the word debtor, but it's not a negative word. It's just anybody using credit, anybody that owes money. So anybody that has ever taken out a loan or financed anything, financed a car, taken out a credit card, put something on layaway is a debtor. Okay, so that negative connotation, like people say, oh, debtors don't pay. No, that's not true. Anybody that owes money is a debtor. So just about everybody on the planet at some point or another is a debtor. Creditors are the organizations or people that extend credit or loan money. So debtors borrow, creditors lend. Assets are everything that you own that has value. The clothes on your back are not an asset. They don't retain value. Your car is an asset. Your house, jewelry, real jewelry, not costume jewelry. Stocks, bonds, property, land, these are assets. To some extent, electronics and furnishings, but usually they don't retain enough value that you lose money on those if you were to try to turn around and sell them. Earning power is your ability to earn money now and in the future. So your creditors will look at your assets and they'll look at your earning power. If you are a, let's say, high school dropout working at McDonald's versus, a doctor working in the emergency room of a hospital with, all your degrees, very different levels of earning power now and in the future. If you are a high school graduate college student working at McDonald's, very different earning power than somebody high school dropout or not a student, because they look at your earning power now and in the future. So if you're in college, they raise your earning power because when you graduate, you'll earn more money, kind of thing. So they look at that. And then they also look at your credit rating, which is your credit report card. And that comes from other creditors reporting how well you've met your financial obligations. Did you pay on time? Did you pay at all? Did you pay extra? Did you pay it off early? Did you pay it off late? How much of a balance did you have between how much you were allowed to charge versus how much you did charge? That all goes into your credit rating. So we have credit reporting agencies. There are 3 major ones. Oh, that's terrible. That doesn't show up at all. We have 3 major credit reporting agencies. They are Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Okay. Each of these credit reporting agencies compiles all of your information, although some of them won't have the same information as others. It depends on who your creditors are reporting to. So, for example, if you owe, like you have say a Target credit card, maybe Target only reports to Experian and Equifax, but not TransUnion, or vice versa. So they don't always have the exact same information. They also don't calculate your score the same. So even if they have the exact same information, they might report different scores. But they keep records on your credit, and those records are used by the creditors to make credit decisions. Again, there's 3 agencies. If a credit card company is trying to decide whether or not to give you a credit card, they have to pay each of these agencies for the information, so they don't pay all 3, they choose one. You don't know which one they're going to choose at any given time. So, um, credit scores are based on what's called your FICO score, and it's called a FICO score because it was invented by Fair Isaacs and Company a long time ago. The range is between 300 and 850, 850 being the maximum, 300 being forget it, you're never getting anything, ever, ever. And it summarizes the probability that you will repay your debt. And we'll go over what ranges are good and poor and excellent and all that too. Yeah. Yes. No. If other people look up your credit score, it lowers your score. You are allowed to look at your own. Yes. It's a very delicate balance. And because the credit reporting agencies don't release the algorithms that they use to calculate your score, there's really no way to know exactly how much it's going to impact you. Having one person, like if I go out and I'm trying to get a car loan, and I go and one person looks at my score, that's really not going to impact me very much. But if I go and I'm trying to get a car loan and the first place turns me down and then the second place turns me down and a bunch of places are running my credit score, that lowers my score because it looks like I'm shopping for credit. And so it it's like a negative connotation. So, but you yourself looking at your credit score cannot lower your score. Like if you go look every single day, it won't lower your score. It's when other people pull your credit score that it can lower your score. It won't necessarily lower your score. It depends on how many people look at it in a period of time. And there's no, like I can't tell you keep it under this many over this long because they don't release their algorithms, so I don't know there's not a safety zone that I know of. But again, if like you go and you apply for a credit card this month and they look at your credit score and then 2 months from now you go apply for a car loan and that's not going to lower your credit score. It's when you have a bunch of them in a short period of time that it'll lower your credit score. Yeah, it's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Okay. And like I said, they use different algorithms, so even if they have identical information, they won't report the exact same score. It'll be in a range, it'll be close, but maybe one's saying you have 650 and the other one's saying you have 675. It varies. Um, but we will go more over credit scores because I know everybody cares and wants to know about that. Installment plans. These are offered by stores. So you'll see the commercials for furniture, pay no money till 2016 or whatever. Those are installment plans. Whenever you go to a store and you buy something and you make payments on it, not rent to own, not the same as rent to own, it's an installment. So they're extending you credit. You get to take the stuff home. So like when you go buy the furniture on the installment plan or whatever, you get to take the furniture home, you make the payments. If you don't pay it, they come repossess the furniture. And then you still owe them all the money. It's not a good thing. Usually it's over a set period of time. They'll only usually go 1 or 2 years on an installment plan because it's like furniture or a dryer or something, and after 2 years it's not worth what you were paying for it anyway, and so if they repossess it, they're still losing money kind of thing. So these are short term. You pay a down payment, which is a portion of the purchase price that you have to pay up front at the time of the purchase, and this can be either a set fee, like a set amount, or a percentage of the total. And that just depends on the store and their policies. Usually, it's most often a percentage of the total. And it's usually 10 to 20%, somewhere in there. But sometimes they do a set amount, and sometimes they have no money down specials with approved credit, that kind of thing. It does, believe it or not. We are going to talk about some of the pitfalls of installment plans and things to watch out for. okay? Because they do some advertising things to get more people to come in, and it's if you do everything the right way, it turns out really good for you, but if you do it the wrong way, you end up paying a lot more, I guess is what I mean. So we'll go over some of that. And then the interest is the fee that you get charged anytime you use credit. I put installment here, but it's for any credit purchase. Nobody's going to extend you credit and not get something out of it. And what they get out of it is what they charge you for the use of their money or their product while you're paying it off. Interest charges can vary. They can be as low as 0 or 1%. They can be as high as 35, 40%. Some states put caps on interest rates and some don't. Like, for example, I don't remember exactly what it is, but I know the state of Florida has a cap on the amount of interest that can be charged, say, on a car loan. I want to say it's like 20%. So they can't go over that. Don't quote me on that number, though. I don't know if that's exactly right. Some states don't, though, and so they can charge you whatever they think you're willing to pay. And this gets added to the total cost. So when you finance, say, a car for $10,000, you don't pay $10,000 for that car. You pay about $15,000 to $20,000 for that car, depending on your interest rate and how long you finance it for. You can pay less than that if you finance it for a shorter time with a lower interest rate. So, that's their. All right, so Heather wants to buy an electric guitar. And the price of the guitar with tax is $2,240 because it's a good guitar. She doesn't want a crummy guitar. She wants a good guitar. So she can save $90 a month. That's how much she can put in the bank towards this guitar. And we want to figure out how long is it going to take her to buy it. So we take her $2,240 that the guitar costs, and we divide it by $90 a month. And through the magic of I did it before, it's 24.9 months. So we've got 25 months before she can buy this guitar, okay? Now, she's been in the music store drooling over this guitar she wants, trying to decide how she's going to afford it. When the salesperson comes up to her and says, "Hey, you don't have to wait 2 years. You can have that guitar today on an installment plan. You just have to put 15% down, and then you'll pay it back every month for the next 2 years, and you'll pay $88.75 a month. You were already saying you could afford $90. This is even less." Well, let's see. How much is this going to cost her? All right, she takes her guitar, and we have this down payment of 15%. Okay, so this is the down payment. The down payment is going to be $336. Okay, which she would pay today. And then she's going to make 2 years, 2-year payments of $88.75. So that's 24 months. And that's going to come to $2,034 in payments. So her total paid is going to be that down payment plus her monthly payments. So she's going to have paid, oops, I wrote down the wrong number here. Sorry. Let me fix this. That's the wrong number, that's the wrong number, this is the wrong number. I was looking at the wrong place. It's 2130. Okay, So when she finishes paying for the guitar on the installment plan, she's going to have paid $24.66. The guitar costs $22.40 with tax. So her finance charge is going to be $226. So she'll have paid $226 more for the guitar than it was actually worth. Good or bad deal, you have to decide that for yourself. If you need the guitar because you actually could have shows that you're getting paid for, where you're playing guitar at a restaurant on the weekends or something like that, then maybe it would be worth paying the $226 because then you wouldn't have to wait 2 years to earn that money. But if you've never played guitar before in your life and you're going to spend the money, maybe it's better to go ahead and wait and buy it outright and not spend the extra money, because who knows, after like 3 months maybe you're not so good at it and you quit. You know, that's a personal decision. You have to decide if it's worth the extra $200. And if you decide it's worth the extra $200, you have to make sure you're going to make the commitment, because credit purchases are a legal obligation. And it can wreck your credit score, sure, but worse than that, you can get taken to court, get sued, have your wages garnished, have major fines, things like that. So it's not just your credit that you have to worry about, it's also like your legal self that you have to worry about. Here. Okay, Carpet King is trying to increase sales, and it instituted a new promotion. All purchases can be paid on an installment plan with no interest, as long as the total is paid in full within 6 months. There's a $20 minimum monthly payment, and the way this works, these installment plans where you get the no interest if paid in full by the due date thing, if you don't pay it in full by the due date, they don't just start charging interest that day. They take all the interest that you didn't pay over the last 6 months and charge you all of that interest, and it hits all at once. Yeah. And so then what happens is your balance then jumps up and increases, and you haven't been paying on any of that interest. And just like compound interest that you're earning at the bank, you get paid for interest that you've earned. Compound interest on purchases works the same way. You get charged interest on interest that you still owe. So when that installment plan happens and they put all that 6 months worth of interest on your bill that month, then your next month's interest charges are really high because you haven't paid on any of that this whole time. So that's why I said you want to be really careful of stuff like this, because it can end up costing more if you don't do it right. Okay, so here's what happens. The Schuster family buys $2,000 worth of carpet and only makes the minimum payment for 5 months. The minimum payment is $20. So for 5 months, they pay $20 a month, and they have paid now $100 towards their $2,134 carpet. How much are they going to have to pay in that 6th month to not have to be charged interest? Yeah. They got to come up with $20.34. And here's what these companies are counting on. They'll tell you the minimum payment is something really small. You can pay more than the minimum payment. Absolutely. You can always pay more than the minimum payment. But when your payment and you get the bill and they're like, oh, minimum payment $20, people go, okay, yeah, $20. Whew, that was cheap. They send it off, right? They're planning on you doing this, so that now on that 6th month, you're not going to pay $2,034 because you don't have it most likely. You're going to pay $20, and they're going to take and charge you all that back interest. Okay, So if you're going to do one of these no interest installment plans, what you do is you don't look at this minimum payment right here, the $20. What you do is you say, okay, 2134, and I'm going to divide it by 6. And that's how much I'm going to pay every month. So 6 goes into 23 times 18, 20, 33. Okay, so you're going to pay $356 a month. So you're going to ignore what they say to pay. You're going to take that amount that you're financing, divide it by how long you have interest free, 6 or 12 months or whatever, and pay that. If you can do that, if you can have that kind of, I don't know, say willpower, but kind of willpower and dedication and, stick to itness, if you can do this and you actually pay it, then you can finance things without paying interest. That's a good thing. The bad thing is when you don't stick to it and you don't pay this amount and you pay some smaller amount, and then you end up in a situation where you can't pay this big chunk and then you get charged all that extra interest, and that isn't good because that ends up costing you a lot more money than if you had just paying interest all along. Does that make sense? Okay, to be considered to have good credit, you want to be 700 and up. Okay, 700 is kind of the lowest good score. Excellent is over 770. Okay, risky or poor is below 600, or it's actually 600 and below. Anything between 600 and 700 is considered fair. Okay, when you're in between 600 and 700, you can get credit, but you want to be very careful, because at that point when you're, okay, the thing about credit is it's very easy to lower your score. It's very easy to lower your score. It is very difficult to raise your score. Okay, when you're in between this 600 and 700, you're at that borderline. You're in fair, so it's very easy to slip into risky or poor. So when you're in between those two numbers, you want to be very careful with what you're doing. And we're going to talk some more about like debt to income ratio and balances and things like that. And that's the stuff that you want to be really careful with. So when we look at the, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but this is just the ranges. Okay, so Mike has a credit rating of 720. Good. Tyler has a credit rating of 560. Bad. Mike and Tyler both apply for loans from Park Bank. Mike gets a loan for 5.2% interest, and Tyler gets a loan that's 3 percentage points higher. Okay, that's actually kind of unrealistic. At the difference of credit scores there, it wouldn't really be 3 percentage points higher, it'd be more like 10. Yeah, in the real world, yeah. 8 to 10% difference, but we'll just go with this 3 percentage points. Okay, so what interest rate is Tyler charged? 8.2%. Okay, so if they take out $3,000, how much interest will they pay? Now we're going to use compound interest. So actually, are we going to use compound interest on this one? You know what? We're not going to use compound interest on this one. We'll just use simple interest on this one. We're going to use simple interest on this one, but it's not going to be, again, it's not very realistic anyway because they're only doing a 3% difference. Okay, so Mike takes out $3,000 at 0.052 for 3 years, and Tyler, bless you, takes out $3,000 at 0.082 for 3 years. Just doing this, if it was simple interest, which it's not, but if it was simple interest, Mike is going to pay $468 worth of interest, and Tyler's going to pay $738 worth of interest. Here's the moral of this story. Low credit costs more. The lower your credit score, the higher your interest rates.
Is that 82?
738.
No, the interest.
Oh yeah, 82. Yeah, 82. So the lower your credit score, the higher interest rates, the more you have to pay for things. But there are things that affect your credit score. We talked about earning power. You have debt to income ratio. Okay. If your debt compared to your income is too high, it will lower your credit score. Okay. So the more money you owe, the lower your credit score can be. Okay. Also, you have your current balances versus your available balance. Okay, so when you get a credit card, you get an available balance. Let's say I have a credit card with a $3,000 limit. My current balance is how much of that $3,000 I've used. If I've used 2,998 of it, it can lower my credit score because my current balance is too close to my available balance. You want to keep this at about half or less. Or try to keep it right around half, like pay it down, bring it up, pay it down, bring it up, kind of thing. Keep it right around half.
And doesn't, if you keep paying like your minimum payment, doesn't that also lower it too if it's so high?
Well, you mean the current balance?
Yeah.
Yeah, the minimum payment doesn't pay things off very quickly though. Because let's say I have a credit card balance, my minimum payment is $20. 5 to 10 of that will be principal, and then 10 to 15 of that will be interest. Until what happens with when we'll get into this a little bit more with the loans, but you get like a sort of a backwards staircase as the months go by, whereas this is principal, or sorry, backwards. This is interest paid, and this is principal. So like if your bill is $20, right now you're paying a lot of interest and a little bit of principal. But then as you pay off the balances, it ends up being less interest and more principal, and we're going to talk about why that works. But when you pay the minimum balance, you're paying very little on the principal at first. And if you keep charging, that doesn't ever change. It's only if you don't use the credit card that this occurs. Okay, so you don't want your total debt as compared to your income to be too bad. You want this to be right around maybe 30%. And your debt, when I say your total debt, I don't mean like your complete balances, I mean like your monthly payments. So your house payment, car payment, credit card payments, not electric bill. That's not debt, that's just a bill. I don't know if that makes sense. We'll talk about that too, but you want this to be right around 30%. You want this to be right around half. Okay. Never pay late. Never pay late. That lowers your credit score. Big time. And they can report you for 1 day late. Like you mail it on time, except it gets caught up in the mail and it gets there 1 day late, they can report you for it. Most of them will give you a leeway a little bit, but they'll charge you a late fee after 1 day anyway. They'll charge you a late fee for everything. So you've got this, you've got that. You don't want to let the score be run often. Okay, you can look at your own score. You don't want other people looking at your score very often. Okay. Um, okay, let's say I have a minimum bill of $50, but I can't afford $50. Don't just not pay it. Send in something, anything, because paying less than the minimum due is better than not paying anything at all. Okay, and yes, you'll get charged with late fees, and they might report you as late, but being reported as late is better than being reported as non-paying. Does that make sense? So that's really important. Don't not pay. If you can only send them $5, send them $5. Just and like with this is all I can afford this month. I'll catch you later. I mean, just send them something. Because late and less than minimum looks a lot better than didn't pay anything at all. At least it looks like I'm trying, and that's important. Um, we get to talk about don't. You don't want to run up your balances frivolously. For example, I don't have any cash on me. I don't get paid till Friday. I got my credit card. I'm hungry. Maybe I go to McDonald's. Use my Visa. Don't pay interest on a Big Mac. Like, you know what I mean? Don't run the risk of putting yourself in a situation where you've run up your bill and maybe you can't afford it, or you can't pay off the whole balance that month, and then you're going to pay interest on a burger. And then you're what? How much does Big Mac cost? Like $2, $3? I don't eat there, so I don't know. Anybody know? $3.49. Okay, your $3.49 burger, which it's going to take you a couple months to pay off because you ran up your bill buying burgers, is going to cost you like $30 or $40. And I don't care how hungry you are, no burger from McDonald's was ever worth $30. Right? I mean, unless that thing is caked in gold, I am not paying that much money for it. So you want to be really careful because these things add up and little things add up and you don't think about it, and then you've run up your balance and you could get into a situation where you can't pay. And then you lower your credit score and you pay a bunch of interest on things that weren't worth it. Okay.